Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, good afternoon, good evening, DCL podcast fans. We are live on our Patreon Facebook website feed, and joining me today after just a crazy day is Christy down in Florida. How you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. I am well. How are you?
Not too bad. We've been texting. We've had kind of a group chat texting through Hurricane Ian here as it came ashore kind of in southwestern Florida, and glad to know that you and your family came through it unscathed and everything like that, and all our friends did as well. But I guess let's just talk about that a little bit. What was that like? This is your first time down in Florida going through a hurricane?
Yeah, I think it was. So I definitely was in Virginia for a hurricane before. That was pretty big, but I was young, so I probably didn't notice. I was 18, so you don't notice. You don't care about things as much at 18. And we've been on vacation at Disney before when there was potential tropical storms and this and that. Not to the point where we were here when they closed the park. So this was my true first real hurricane. And then we have this house that we didn't know how it was going to do, and we didn't know how our area was going to do. And so that was something
pretty crazy. So I'm going to just let you touch on everybody that we've kind of chatting with and kind of update for listeners to our show to know that everybody's okay.
Yeah, so we thought we're going to talk about sort of the agenda for this show is what happens during hurricane season. If you have a hurricane, we're going to answer some questions. If there's a hurricane while you're supposed to go on a cruise, what is happening to the ships, the Disney ships right now affected by this hurricane? And then we're going to talk briefly. We're going to start with how's everybody doing that we know. So Amber, as you know, is on our show, has been on our show several times, as many times as she's able. She's usually on every 6 months or something. And she is for the most part, our Instagram contributor. So all the cute, fun stuff that you see on Instagram, Amber posts, it's fantastic. So she is right down the street from me. We're in the Horizon West Winter Garden area of Orlando, and she and I, both of our houses, fine. We were fine, didn't lose power. And that was the big thing so the things that were of the most concern, I guess, for us and we didn't know, right, what it was going to be like, but were we going to lose power? And there's something about how they store the water in Florida. If you lose power, you lose water. Water lasts for a tiny bit, but then it's done because something runs on the power. And so if there's no power to these water reserves, houses don't that is fascinating to me because that's definitely not anything we had to worry about in Michigan ever. Your water was never not coming out of your faucets. So unless you had a well. So the houses that do have a well, those would be based on it. But anyway,
sorry,
house with teenagers.
Well, it's homecoming here tonight, and so Alex has got a buddy over. They're going to go to the game tonight, and then Andrew's going. He's got practice and going to the game afterwards too. So it's a little bit of chaos at our house. So welcome to live podcasting.
This is what happens. And then so power with water, stuff like that. So preparation. But then the other issue was a tornado. And when you don't have a basement, where do you go when there's a tornado? So you go inside and in a hallway or an indoor room with no windows. So we turned our master closet into our little tornado bunker. My son slept in that. I didn't know if we were going to have a tornado in the middle of the night. They said it was a concern all night long. So I was not going to have him be in his room. Could we get to him if an alert went off? You know what I mean? I just wasn't. Right. So he made a fort, and he actually wants to sleep in there again today. He wasn't sure he was going to like it, but now he spent almost the whole day in there and loved it. So anyway, that was sort of our experience. It really was fine. It was still pretty loud. My friends, Sarah, who we haven't talked about yet, but Sarah, who's been on our show a lot with from Gluten-Free, Dairy-Free Walt Disney World, is her page, and she does a lot of the allergy contribution episodes that we've done. She is in the Kissimmee Four Corners area, which actually got very flooded. But she was fine and her house was fine. She said actually Irma was louder in terms of like the wind noise and the hurricane noise that came through. That this one wasn't as loud, which is shocking to me because it was very loud. Like if we opened the door because our pool would have had to be drained a couple of times, it like was like woo, it was just whooshy and loud and like intense. We were real happy to close those doors back up and just say, you stay out there, loud noise. So Sarah's doing well. Amber's doing well, who lives down the street. Lake and Katie, we've chatted with, and I physically talked to Lake today. He was driving home from work and called. They have a tiny little leak in one part of their house, but he thinks that it's not going to be like a huge deal. We had like a lot of crazy sideways rain. Like that rain was coming from everywhere. It is not a surprise that things might leak because it was just so insane. And then Steve from Tampa obviously could have had it really badly. And he was so great. He was texting us all day to sort of texting me to both give me tips leading up to the day and the night and just, information. It was so nice to have him out there as a friend and a resource. But he and his family are great. They have like a couple of trees that were issues and some shingles, but like, no, they were very lucky. No real problems. Depending on where it was going to hit, there was more of a concern that he was going to have issues. So
yeah, it looked like it was going to hit Tampa there for a while. It was predicted, and then it ended up going a little bit further south of Tampa. So,
and the devastation is just it's so sad. It's really like whole, the Sanibel Island Bridge and the Fort Myers area just annihilated. It's really devastating.
I know one of our flight attendants lives down. She moved from Arizona. Her husband retired, and they built a new house down in Fort Myers. So it'll be interesting to find out. Hopefully they're okay. But any of our listeners that are down there, I just wanted to, as we kind of said on Facebook, that we just wanted to let you know that we're all thinking of you down in the Florida area. I know that Frank is up in the St. Augustine area. He's on our show quite a bit. We've got a show coming up with him here soon with the Galapagos, and sounded like they're okay up in the St. Augustine area as well. So just know that all of us here, we're kind of thinking of you guys, Christy, and all our regular contributors, but also all our listeners as well. So
right.
But it is kind of scary. I lived in Nebraska I went to high school there, and we had a couple of tornadoes come through. Nothing that came close to our house, but man, when the sky goes dark like that, and it's just like the unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen, right? Right.
Yeah, and you just don't, and like, yeah, you have no idea. And the tornadoes is the worst part because you don't have a basement to go into, and you don't know what's going to happen, right? And even if you have a basement, you don't really know that that's going to do anything to protect you, but better than a closet, I'm thinking.
Right. So Katie says hi. Hi to you and Lake out there. Glad things are well. Elizabeth says, hi all. Hope all my Florida friends take naps today to make up for the lost sleep. Because I think Amber, I think, said something like she got 3 hours of sleep or something.
Yes. And I think most of us, well, I don't know if this is true of everybody, but it's loud, and you just don't know, right? Like you don't know what's going to happen. And obviously there's devastation. Did you see the picture of Universal's Jurassic Park ride? Just like
where the dinosaurs escaped.
Yes.
Just like in Jurassic Park.
That was funny then. Yeah. It's still, when you guys texted about that, it's still funny today. By the way, the other listener who's the Facebook user is Lake. So it's Lake and Katie together. They're so cute. So yeah, you just don't know. So it was really, really loud. Fortunately, we use very loud air purifiers. And so to sort of block out noise in general. And it really helped. Yeah, Katie said the storms at night are the worst. And they are. They're just because it's the unknown, right?
Right. Well, this is Thursday, September 29th at about 4:30 p.m. So we'll touch on a couple of things that we know here, I guess, now.
Pacific time.
4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time. West Coast is the best coast. We start with the 4:30 Pacific. But what do we know about the two ships that are out of Port Canaveral right now, Christy?
So the Disney Wish are, as a friend of the show, Chris and the Concierge pointed out, is they're having their first 6-night cruise. So
Who knew?
who knew? They were extended 2 nights. And this is just a really good reminder. If you are traveling any time of year, because airline schedules, if you have to travel somewhere, and frankly, now, no matter what, right, you might have an extended stay, bring medication that you might need. I always bring, like, there's a thyroid pill I have to take, and it's really bad if I miss it. I always take an extra pill with me everywhere, every time I leave my house. And I think that this is a good reminder that maybe you take 2 to 3 days of that medicine that you just cannot miss, because they're going to have some medication on ships, but they're not going to have everything, and they're not necessarily going to have exactly what you need. And, they have to verify dosages and just all kinds of stuff. So bring extra medication with you. But the Disney Wish is having 2 extra days at sea. The Disney Fantasy, as of now, shouldn't have anything different. But they, because we're waiting on when Port Canaveral is actually allowed to open the port. And that's the thing. The port authorities have to give clearance. There's a lot of safety stuff. And especially with the amount of rain that we had, like, I think they called this the rainiest storm, the wettest storm that there was, or something. And it was also because the past 2 months have been exceptionally wet. Like, there's flooding in areas that have never flooded. And now then it wasn't dry from like the last couple of rainstorms and thunderstorms. So this water is just sitting on top of the other water. And because the hurricane moves so fast, it just is going really slow. So the problem is that the infrastructure, I guess I never really thought it was an issue. I didn't really understand why they were like going to look at bridges after events. Well, it's because that rain deteriorates it. And because of the wind and everything, some of these bridges are just gone. And so they have to double check everything before they can allow people to come in. They have to confirm that it's safe to do that. So the thought is that Port Canaveral will open up again on Saturday, but that their ships probably have to have a later arrival. And so Disney Cruise Line has already put out there that they're probably going to open up on Saturday, and the Fantasy is probably going to be a little bit late.
Right. So what we do know is, like you said, the Wish is going to go to Castaway, I believe, tomorrow. Finally, she couldn't make it the first time because of the waves were too high. So I think she stopped at Castaway on Friday or Saturday, one of the 2 days.
Saturday. She's going on Saturday. And the Fantasy would be trying to go tomorrow.
Okay.
Per her regular schedule, which also brings us up to the Dream, because the Dream is doing their cruise out of Miami. They actually had a sea day yesterday instead of stopping in Nassau. Friend of the show, Anthony, is on that ship this week. And also, Steve, Anthony loved the magic and loves the magic. He loves the Dream. So Dream class is the best class, just like to say.
He's probably going around doing that crazy detective show, going just around and around and around.
We'll have to follow.
Just love it.
We'll see about that. But so anyway, they were stopping at Castaway today. I don't think I actually got a report as to whether they made it to Castaway. But he said that the waves are really bad.
Yeah, it's probably going to be that way for a while. It takes a while for the storms to move through. Just the front part of it, as it hits the eastern coast of Florida, it extends way out there, and so it can really affect it. Castaway Key is not that far off the coast of Florida, really, and so it can really extend all the way out there. So it brings up a couple different things. So, like you said, they got to clear out the port, make sure that all the channels are clear, everything's clear, everything's in working order for the ships to dock. So right now we're looking at the Wish coming back on Sunday, the Fantasy coming back late Saturday, and delaying a later embarkation for the October 1st, 2022 sailing on the Fantasy, which brings the point that the 3-night September 30th Disney Wish cruise was canceled. What happened to those people?
So Sarah, the gluten-free, dairy-free Walt Disney World, was supposed to be on that cruise.
Oh no.
So she's canceled. They were given 20% off a future cruise, which isn't that much, really, especially if these people booked on opening day. But and they are not allowed to call to rebook until October 5th. And let me just say, Disney is real broken right now. So like payments aren't going through. the word on the street is that they're actually extending payments. They stopped taking phone calls for anything other than for cruises this week only. So if you have anything you want to do with Disney Cruise Line, you just need to wait. Those Australia Magic at Sea cruises started or launched for the general public would have been last night at 6:00 Eastern, which would have been the 29th at 8 a.m. or whatever it is Australian time. People couldn't make them. The website was just not functioning. Like you would click through to almost get to the end and it would just die out, and Disney closed their call center. And so everything is just sort of, hurricaney at the moment. So everybody just has to have a little bit of grace about all of that, and it'll come back and work again eventually. And the one thing about the website not functioning and not working is that nobody's booking those cruises, right? So you're not missing out on anything because nobody's doing it.
That is true. And so if you don't have anything pertinent right now, maybe give it a week and then
give it a minute.
Yeah, give it a minute before you get back to them. Also, the airports supposedly are supposed to open. MCO and Tampa are supposed to open on Friday, tomorrow. Once again, they've got to check the runways. They got a lot of things that they need to do to make sure that the jetways are safe, depending upon the wind loads and everything like that. So
how do they do that? Because I thought about that today. Same thing with these bridges, right? And the ports. They have to make sure that the planes can go fast enough and be on them and land, and that it doesn't crumble out from under them when that happens because of damage to the cement. So how do they make sure that's not going to happen?
Well, they've got engineers on as part of their staff. So they'll go out and check the runway to make sure it's okay. But and then they've got teams of engineers too that'll be checking the jet bridges and stuff like that. I saw something where they had a report where they showed what they did with the jet bridges. Those are the things that you walk out from the terminal onto the plane. So those things kind of stick out, and those heavy wind loads can affect them as well. So a lot of things that they need to check before they get it open. But
and all the roads, there was tons of flooding around MCO, and I'm assuming just based on the rest of the storms in Tampa that there was a good amount of just water down there as well.
Right. So I guess just pack your patience, right? Pack your pixie dust
everywhere.
Pack your patience.
Do you know where I'm supposed to be right now, by the way?
You're supposed to be in London, right?
I'm supposed to be right now on a flight to London.
Yeah.
Like it was leaving 20 minutes ago.
That didn't quite happen. Instead, you're here podcasting with me. I think you should be in London. I think you should be flying to London with a drink in your hand, right?
I would definitely have a drink in my hand. And, this is lovely too.
So, okay, just a couple more minutes before we finish up here. If somebody, can you answer this question for people? If there's a pending hurricane like this one coming up, and you've got a sailing coming, and you just don't feel safe to fly down to Florida and take part in the festivities that happened down there, what can people do?
You have to wait. And so it was funny. There's one of my friends is a travel agent, and she and I were talking. She had a client that needed to cancel. She just wasn't going to come. And I don't think it was a named storm yet. But it was storm number 9 or whatever, and it was on its way. And so they wanted to cancel. Her clients wanted to cancel. And I said, Disney's probably not going to let you out. You can't just say, I'm afraid of the storm and I don't want to go anymore. And so there has to be a hurricane, a named tropical storm. And there has to be related to the area you're supposed to go, or you have to use your own trip insurance. And so this is one of the reasons, I guess, to have trip insurance. If you want the flexibility to say, in my hometown, there's a hurricane and I for sure want to be able to get out of this trip, then you need to have trip insurance. And you need to have trip insurance before the storm is named. So you can't it can't be Hurricane Ian and then you go and buy your trip insurance. So just something to keep in mind. I actually bought my trip insurance because I had forgotten that ours expired when it was storm number 9 or whatever, tropical. And I looked it up in the terms and conditions. I'm like, is this allowed? And they're like, as long as it's before it's a named hurricane, you're okay. So just look up your terms and conditions. But so Disney, though, eventually will issue an exception, just like the airlines do. And you just have to sit patiently until that occurs. And with your airline, for example, once they cancel a flight, and that takes forever. Then you can go in and get a refund. But if you just use the exception that they come out with to say you can change your flight, well, then you have to change it within their terms or take their credit. So you have to follow whatever their term is. The same is going to be with Disney. Disney was charging or saying they were going, and I think they did charge $600 for people who wanted to change their cruise within the 2 weeks of the cruise. And honestly, I think they would allow them to do more, have more cancellation fees before at that time, but they just went with $600. But either way, then Disney came out with the plan that you could change it. And the people that were getting through that same day called back and said, hey, no, you can't like give today people to change it for free and then charge me $600. So, yeah, I guess. So you wait and then you contact Disney. Or some of the hotel stays and stuff, they were like, don't even bother. Phones that aren't, nothing's going through, the phone lines aren't working. And so just don't. The issue was for this particular storm is that people were in Florida, their cruises like for this weekend or the Star Cruiser, the
Galaxy Star Cruiser.
Yeah. The Star Wars Star Cruiser, whatever. We are not renaming it, but got canceled and Disney like didn't give them a hotel. So these people were already in Orlando, booked on the Star Cruiser, and Disney's like, sorry, we don't have a hotel room for you. So I guess, that's just, these types of things can happen. And the thing is that when you're traveling in September and October in Florida, you do have to be a little flexible and prepared for tropical storms and hurricanes that can definitely throw things off. And then obviously they can close the parks, so here's another, I'm just talking, I know.
No, go ahead. This is because we don't really have any agenda beyond this. So
here's another thing. So Disney put out that they're going to open the parks tomorrow. And I was going to look up to see what times. I haven't checked to see if they released times yet, but they're opening the parks tomorrow, a phased reopening or something. They called it again. And then they said, if you have tickets that you haven't used, you have till tomorrow to use them. Well, you close the park for 2 days. You're going to give people 1 day to use their 2 days worth of tickets? Like, huh? And so, it's a little bit of like a lack of communication, right? We don't really know any of the details. But the weather this weekend's supposed to be great, which is usually what ends up happening after a hurricane.
So all the locals will be down there for sure. Everybody else is trying to get out of town to get back home, I guess. So.
We have park passes for like every day, and I don't know how much. Oh, and the 40th is happening at Epcot on Saturday. So we do have park passes because it just, for just a tiny bit, this is the opportunity to do it.
Any good merch? Can you get a popcorn bucket? What are you getting?
Maybe there's a Figment. There's like a Figment with a cute little sweater of like the Epcot 40th
popcorn bucket.
I don't know. No, that one's just. Oh, sorry. I may not have said the actual word after that. A plush.
Oh, plush. Okay. I was gonna say you got yours behind you over your shoulder right now. Look at them back there.
I can't. I hate this camera. Everything's in the opposite direction. We have some comments I'm trying to pull out. Chad bought his travel insurance that he hopes not to use just a couple days for our upcoming trip. And yeah, you can do it. Yes, Steve?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You can buy it right before as long as, the thing hasn't occurred that you might want to cancel for. And you just have to read the terms and conditions with each of the travel insurance plans that you're going to buy. Katie said, we're sitting here with the windows open. It's lovely outside. I know. Like we went for a walk earlier and had to like wear our coats and long pants. So Chad also said that he's glad all their DCL contributors podcast. Are all doing well. Yeah. DCL podcast people are doing well. So thank you.
Well, I guess as we kind of finished up here, what did we learn? I guess pack your patience a little bit, stay on top of everything. Stay on top of what Disney is offering as far as cancellation fees. Make sure that you get your insurance before the storm is named for it to count. So once it's named, then you're going to have some issues there.
But once the storm occurs, honestly, everybody's quite flexible with cancellations. You just have to also then allow that to occur and then, let things develop as they do. So something to remember too, if you are going to be at the parks this weekend and around, that some people were sort of trapped and scared in their hotel rooms and things didn't quite go as they were planning. So everybody needs to be a little patient with everybody. But there's a lot of cast members that are flooded and that had, significant damage to their homes. And so we just have to be really mindful of that they've maybe taken away from their family to come and help entertain us. And that just to remember that there's probably a lot of internal stress going on. And so let's say, something happens to your home. Now you have to wait because I guess FEMA for Florida is stepping in, and they have to have the right counties and the right locations to see whether FEMA is going to count. And, insurance only covers certain things. And so it's a stressful moment if you were one of the many individuals who have damaged homes. And, that's a lot. There was a lot of water.
Sorry, I was reading the next one. I could live on the chicken tenders, noodles, and pot stickers at the Poly for at least a week.
If they offered them. Did you see? I don't know if anybody saw, but at the Grand Floridian, they opened up Citricos and made like a really nice buffet.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So
before we finish up, I want to go back to that point, because I think that's a really good point as far as, giving people a little bit of space after this, especially the cast members or people down in Florida. Can I tell you just a kind of a funny story? So I was flying for the reserves a long time ago, just doing a local. So we're up in the air, flying around, doing some things. And there was a pretty significant earthquake in the Seattle area. And I came back, and like for us, it was kind of like, oh, well, I mean, I guess there was an earthquake. But the people that like lived through it, it really affected them. And it was kind of weird because like I was there that morning and I was there, 4 hours later, but I missed the actual event. And I do remember just, how it affected different people. And so, for the next several weeks, as you go down to the parks or even maybe getting on the ships and stuff like that, you never know what that cast member or the person at Publix or whoever else is, what they've gone through. And so maybe give them a little bit of space as far as what's the word I'm looking for?
Well,
be kind. Be kind.
Right?
That's it.
Be kind.
Yes.
And that's just a good lesson for life. We don't know what sort of post-traumatic stress syndrome everybody's having in whatever their situation might be. Obviously, after a big natural event like this, there's going to be a lot of that. And even in terms of like me, I can only imagine. And, there were cast members that they sleep. So they know their house is somewhere and their families might be there, but they still volunteer to take care of the people at the hotels. And so they have them coming and staying and riding out the storm. And I know that I had a hard time working. Like there was some work I had to get done, but it was nerve-wracking because you're like trying to run around and you have to make ice in case you lose power so that you can have like a freezer or like a little fridge so you can keep your kids' milk run, like all these little things going through your head and stressed and putting buckets of water by your sink because the power might turn off the water and then you can't wash your hands. Like just all these little things that add a lot. Like I actually have like these heart flutters that I've been having because of the stress of it all. And I'm not the only one with this stuff, right? And I'm not the only one that maybe had a hard time working for a little bit. So we got to remember that when we're out in the world, and it might be from Hurricane Ian and it might be from something else that something is affecting them. Just a reminder, this kind of stuff is maybe a reminder that we just have to be kind to people out there. We don't know what anybody is dealing with.
Definitely. So, and I know all our listeners are amazing listeners, and
yes, they are.
Yes, and we all try to do our best when we're out there. Congratulating and thanking the cast members for everything that they do for us. So, all right. Well, as we get out of here, thanks for doing this really quick, Christy. Super happy that you and the family are safe down there, and all of our listeners, our regular contributors, Katie and Lake and Amber and Steve in Tampa, and also I'm like totally Frank. Yep, Frank, and all of you guys out there who we didn't name as well. Just if you're down in the Florida area and live through this, we just want to know that we've been thinking about you and glad to put this one behind us, right?
Absolutely, and good luck to the people who might be getting the brunt of Ian. as he's turned into the jerk little hurricane again and going up the East Coast.
Yeah, matter of fact, I got to get off because we were doing a quick podcast with Zach up in the Atlanta area. So hopefully it'll be safe for them up there as well. So, all right. Thanks for doing this, Christy. Be safe out there, everybody. Safe cruising, and we'll see you soon on the DCL podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.